on three of the comments of these some of them very deep remarks by Professor Roy. First, he said that the results are not counterintuitive, but still important, at least to get down scientifically what we already knew. The interesting thing is, well, I don't mind that. If that's all we did, that's a lot. But when I gave this research proposal to French expert audiences, the response I got from, you could say, the modal expert in France is that race so overwhelms religion that looking at two Senegalese groups, they'll face the same levels of discrimination because people think of Africans, or French people think of Africans as Africans and not as Muslims or Christians, and that I would get no results. So the expectation is that this identification strategy would have yielded no religious effect. So in a sense, what I like to do when I give talks of this sort is with clickers, have the audience with a clicker voting what they think the coefficient will be. And it's always a normal distribution, and then nobody could say everybody knew it would be the result you got. So in some ways, the results were counterintuitive, at least to people who thought they knew a good deal about France. The second thing is laïcité. And laïcité is one of the most interesting things in France to write books about because there are more books in the shelves of the libraries and or the bookstores in France than almost any other topic. And it's what is called an essentially contested concept. The argument I want to make about laïcité is not that it is, in a sense, from 1905 origins. It wasn't against so much religion, it was against the church. And fighting church hegemony, the church controlling the ideology of their children, get the church away from our children's upbringing. The point I want to make is that even though the responses about laïcité in surveys of FFF show an enormous support of it across the ideological spectrum, the French still condition their behavior on religion. It's one of the contradictions of the society, that they believe in radical secularism, and they act in a way that contradicts it. And that's one of the things we see, especially in the voting game. By the way, Professor Roy thought I was innocent about not putting Jews and Christians together. I am partially guilty. In our games, we had a few Jews. And my co-authors wanted to combine the Jews with the Christians. And I thought that was outrageous. But for purposes of statistical, getting statistical power, not for any reason that Jews are anything like Christians, I caved and still feel guilty rereading those sections. So I'm not as innocent as you thought. The third point is the most profound. And I think it's extremely interesting for future thinking because we didn't think it through. And that was Professor Roy's second remark, saying that since the 1970s, the names of the guilty parties, the concept of the guilty parties, changed. First from Maghrebian, then to immigrants, then to Arabs, and finally to Muslims. And going to a brilliant piece he wrote a couple of weeks ago, where he says that the real problem is not the radicalization of Islam, it's the Islamicization of radicalism. It so happens that Muslim is in a sense, the interpretive frame for social deviance. It's the interpretive frame of today. And we did the research when the Muslim frame had replaced the Arab frame, had replaced the immigrant frame, and had replaced the Maghrebian. And it may well be the case that within another decade, the Muslim frame will disappear, and these people will be called something else. And so we may only be capturing a period effect rather than a general effect. And I had never thought of this before, but it's worth investigating in the future. I think we should open up.
Yeah. So I think there's